Hey traders, today is Tuesday, November the 16th, and I wanted to do this little video intro on this trade because it is the first time I do believe that we have done this trade in our live trading room. And normally we'll just do it in a live Zoom session or we'll do it in the chat room, but I did want to do a video intro for this trade just to go over a couple of the mechanics of it. And again, if you have any questions on it, let me know in the chat room before you are out doing these kinds of trades. But this trade that we're looking at today here is a put ratio back spread. And we've talked about maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 different ways to hedge or position ourselves to be able to profit if and when the market turns down, or if we get into a crash, or if we get into a bearish market trend. And those are all nice ways to do it. They're all valid ways to do it. We've used pretty much all of them. But the one that we haven't used here is this put ratio back spread. And I want to talk about it because it might be potentially one of the most efficient ways to do it. And it's also one of the most potentially most profitable ways to do it as well. But it does have some interesting characteristics with it. And so I just wanted to kind of walk you through those. So first of all, one of the things that's interesting about a put ratio back spread is that it is a positive Vomma trade. And that means that we are long volatility. And there's a lot of ways to get long volatility, but they're not always practical. A lot of people will just go out and buy the VIX, for example, and contango and a lot of other issues come into play there. That doesn't really make it an effective way to get long volatility. But this is a positive Vomma trade, and that's the number one thing. That is maybe even more than delta and directional movement. Positive Vomma is the number one thing that we're trying to initiate when we are positioning ourselves for a market correction, because volatility usually shoots up. Now, if you do these trades correctly, they can be put on at no cost. Now, be aware, I'm not saying no risk. You can put them on at no cost, and that's what we're going to endeavor to do here. In fact, we're actually going to look to do it at a slight credit. But that doesn't mean that there's not risk in the trade. And so we'll talk about that as we get into the trade here. One of the biggest, I think, bang for your buck trades that you can make here, I already mentioned that, but I think that of all of the different ways that you can choose to position yourself to benefit from a market correction, put ratio back spreads are probably, again, I think probably one of your best bang for your bucks trades. Now, the back spread, it does have negative theta inside of the trade. And so you do want to be able to do this at a credit if at all possible, because it does build negative theta in the trade, and that does affect the trade in a negative manner. There's also what we like to call a valley of death here in that trade. Now I want to show you why this valley of death can be an issue that is not that relevant to the success or failure of the trade, just depending, of course, on what Vega and Vomma do. If we get increasing volatility, it doesn't really become a factor in the trade. So we're going to talk about that, but there is a valley of death that we need to deal with. And then, as I said, it is a positive Vomma trade. So as IV, as implied volatility, rises in the marketplace, this valley of death is going to go away. So let me just show you the structure first of all on the trade. Now I'm looking at, again, we want to sort of get short one of the indices, and I'm using the IWM here. I'm using the IWM for a couple of reasons. It is the Russell. It's a little bit cheaper than doing it on the SPYs or doing it on the Qs. But if we look at the technical indicators here, here's the SPY, here's the S&P 500, and you can see that it's, getting there to a sell signal, but it's not quite there. In fact, we're actually trying to push back up to these all-time highs. Sort of the same situation with the Qs. Not quite, everything is really implying that we're in the overbought territory, but we're not really getting any sell signals here. And in fact, the trend is ascending. We are actually trying to push back up to those all-time highs. If you look at the IWM, It is right now the weakest of the indices. It is actually hooking and giving us a sell signal to the downside. So that's why we're going to use the IWM on this trade. I'm going to use the January 21st expiration date on this trade. That's 66 days out. That's in maybe a little bit of a hope that we get some window dressing, we get some tax selling, we get some repositioning here at the end of the year. And it might be a good window of opportunity. Of course, that's the first thing that we need to always look at, right, is trying to predict when a market downturn is going to happen. And good luck with that, right? But I'm going to go out a little ways in time on this into the next year, and I'm going to go out 66 days on that. Now, the back ratio put spread, it's a put spread because we're using puts. It's a back ratio because it is a ratio trade. We're using a 2-to-1 ratio, and it's a back ratio because the larger position is down here below this, so it's backwards. So what we're looking at doing here, IWM is at 238 right now. I'm going to go just slightly in the money here. I'm just going to go slightly in the money here to these 240s, and I'm going to sell one of these. Okay, so I'm going to bring in a premium here and I'm going to sell that one. And then the ideal goal here, again, as I said, would be able to do this trade at a zero cost or even a slight credit, which is what we're attempting to do here. So I'm going to sell this one for about $9.60, and then I'm going to go buy two of these 225 puts for about $4.35. And of course, that should result in the overall trade gaining a credit on the trade. The numbers on the trade are pretty impressive. I'm going to put up about $1,600 to do the trade. Max profit on the trade would be $21,000. Probably not going to get that, but as you can see, it is a very big bang for your buck type trade. Now, the thing that I wanted to talk about was how Vomma and how volatility is going to affect this. So I've already got, you can see a little credit strangle working here on IWM. I'm going to take that out of the equation there. And there you go. There's the risk graph of how this trade will look. I'm going to add back in here our profit and loss at our theoretical level. So again, remember that this solid line right here would be our profit or loss at expiration on January 21st. But we also have our profit and loss theoretical number, which would be at the present time. Okay, and that's that orange line right there. So you can see that while we do have this valley of death, that only is going to occur at expiration. In between now and then, if we were to get some downward movement here, our P&L would actually change fairly linearly, and it would look quite nice. Now, here's the interesting part, though, about this trade. I bring this down just a little bit so that we can see it here. And we go to the Analyses tab. Again, I've removed this credit strangle that I've already got working in here. Let's say that volatility, we do get a change of direction in the marketplace. Volatility starts to spike a little bit. And I'm going to come in here on these positions, and I'm going to start pumping up the IV of these trades. So these are the ones that we're looking at right here, these January 21st. And let's say that IV starts coming up. Let's say that it goes up by 9%. Pump both of these up by 9%. You can see what that does to that orange line. It completely obliterates the valley of death, and it also actually enhances our potential rate of return down here by quite a bit versus what we would actually get at expiration. So this is very different from a normal credit trade where this line is going to be inside of this line. Right now it's outside of the line. So again, if you structure these correctly, they can be an interesting trade. That's the trade that I'm looking at putting on, guys. Good luck with it. Let me know if you have any questions.